One froze SCP-049's privileges after the death of Dr. Raymond Hamm. Site-19 now treats this eloquent doctor as proof that courtesy and lethal intent can occupy the same body. SCP-049 remains in a standard secure humanoid cell, moves only under sedation and a Class 3 restriction harness, and can be calmed with lavender when its mood breaks. Human interaction is barred, fresh corpses are barred, and every routine now assumes the next interview could turn fatal. 9-meter humanoid shaped like a medieval plague doctor, but the robe, gloves, and mask are not clothing. X-rays show a human-like skeleton under an outer layer that has grown into costume and erased the difference between garment and flesh. It speaks fluently, prefers English or medieval French, and even claims a history reaching back to 15th century France. Yet the real mystery is not where it came from, but the pestilence it insists it can detect, and no researcher has ever defined. When SCP-049 decides a subject carries the pestilence, one bare touch stops every biological function by an unknown means. It then opens an impossible black doctor's bag, performs crude surgery, and sometimes leaves behind a 049-2 body it calmly describes as cured. SCP-049 entered Foundation custody during the investigation of disappearances in Montauban, where officers found several 049-2 instances inside a local home. While the reanimated corpses fought the raid, SCP-049 watched, wrote in its journal, and surrendered once the room was under control. In the first interview, SCP-049 greets Dr. Raymond Hamm as a fellow physician, shifts from French into English, and admires the laboratory for showing so little trace of the pestilence. The exchange makes it seem less like a captive monster than a proud colleague speaking through the wrong face. Pressed to define the disease, SCP-049 rejects bubonic plague and claims that life and death are amateur categories for amateur doctors. It says its earlier victims were ill, calls its method the cure to end all cures, and demands a laboratory, assistance, and more time. At Site-19, SCP-049 was given a steady supply of fresh corpses and spent days operating before filling a thick leather journal with notes. In one D-class trial, it thanked the staff, killed the subject with a touch to the throat, and produced a grasping 049-2 that attacked security. Later logs repeat the obsession across other mammals, a goat that reanimates, then an orangutan that forces repeated revisions before SCP-049 admits frustration. Different subjects change the details, but never the belief that more human-like anatomy will bring the perfect cure closer. The full Bovine Trial finally reveals SCP-049's method in sequence: embalming, dark fluids called essences of the humors, days of organ adjustment, and reanimation triggered by an electric prod. Between procedures, it requested simple food, wrote constantly, and left journals the Foundation still cannot read. In follow-up questioning, SCP-049 calls the pestilence an unspeakable horror and defends its altered bodies as lives made clean. Even so, the attending researcher notes that the outcomes never change, and suspects SCP-049 may understand that failure better than it lets anyone hear. On April 16, 2017, SCP-049 suddenly asked whether Dr. Hamm was feeling well and killed him when the routine interview continued. A security lapse left Hamm's body undiscovered for 3 hours, long enough for SCP-049 to convert a colleague into another 049-2. Confronted by Dr. Theron Sherman, SCP-049 insists Hamm was sick and that the killing was mercy, then unravels when forced to explain what disease it had actually found. Whatever collegial trust once existed ends here, under a barrier and under revocation. 3 weeks later, SCP-049 tells Dr. Elijah Itkin that Hamm's death was regrettable but useful, because only living human subjects can now move the work forward. Dead flesh has taught it all it can, and that conclusion leaves the Foundation with no safe research path at all. SCP-049 remains a Euclid humanoid in a secure Site-19 cell, dangerous enough to require sedation, physical restraint, lavender calming, and indefinite limits on direct staff contact or new surgical material. Its status is containment without understanding, because the pestilence remains undefined while the entity still believes only it can save the world.